Welcome to Inkhaven Presents, Readings from the Archives, where I invite writers on the internet to come here, bring an essay that they've written, read it, and then we discuss it. My guest today is Henry Stanley. Welcome, Henry.
Thank you.
What have you brought for us to read today?
So this is a piece of personal nonfiction, which I've been sitting on for probably 3 years now, something like that. And I brought it to Inkhaven in a very kind of rough draft format. Got quite a lot of feedback on it from the writer circles and some of the bloggers here, and managed to polish it up into a piece I'm pretty proud of.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I recall you brought it as part of your application, but I can tell you really care about it and have worked on it quite a bit.
That's right.
All right, well, let's listen to that. Thanks.
Don't screw the crew. An open letter to one person I know. I hadn't at first clocked you as that good looking. Cute, sure, but your hair is frizzy no matter what you do to tame it, and you're somehow squinting in every photograph, and greeting us when you're in every photograph, and greeting us when you get back from work with a smiling kia ora always struck me as a bit twee. We'd been housemates for maybe 6 months. You'd come over from New Zealand for a job and found our Peckham group house online, a little community of friendly weirdos. It was a toss-up between two people in the end, and I picked you. You'd be working from the office full-time, and if you weren't a good fit, then at least we wouldn't see much of you. That turned out to be a fateful choice. You'd come home from a rooftop wine bar in the old factory building on Rye Lane, open for the first time after being closed for the winter. You wanted to show me photos you'd taken of the sunset. You sat next to me on the sofa, sliding a little too close, your thigh touching mine. I could smell the alcohol on your breath. In that moment, some part of my brain rewired itself, and no matter how bad an idea it was, I manufactured our next encounter, a house dinner or movie night or some such. We drank and smoked weed. And when the others went to bed, I draped my arm around you, and you leant on my shoulder, and we lay down and held each other, and after a while, you softly kissed my neck, and I looked at you and kissed you back. I don't know if we should, I said, attempting restraint. That's what makes it so exciting, you replied. I still don't understand what happened to me in those following few weeks. The limerence was brutal, totally consuming, until it devolved into something almost psychotic. My mental health fell off a cliff. Who develops an anxiety disorder at 32? To the point that I had to take time off work. You went from hot to cold and back again, assuring me each time we had sex that it would be the last, until I made it conditional on you not saying that again. A housemate objected vocally to our seeing each other, saying I was going to destroy the house share, the home that she depended on, but admitting months later that the real reason was her own jealousy and insecurity. You found out and got upset. She must think I'm such a slut, you said, sitting on the end of my bed, head in your hands. You decided to break things off, and for some stupid reason I went along with it, a level of passiveness of which I am still ashamed. But when I realized that would mean the end of something so significant, that maybe in another world really just meant never, my favourite Rumi quote came to mind. Run from what's comfortable, destroy your reputation, be notorious. And pretty soon I was knocking on your door again. I knew you'd be returning to New Zealand in a few months, though part of me hoped you would stay. I prepared to move out. It didn't seem wise to be seriously dating a housemate, and I wanted to make the most of our time together, give things a shot. Quietly I wondered how practical remote work might be with a 12-hour time difference. And then, quite suddenly, you announced you had quit your prestigious, high-status, yet dreadful job, and were going to travel around Europe. Your November departure became August, then late July, then early July. I couldn't understand why you wanted to cut things short, when most nights and mornings we'd be sharing a bed or the sofa. I suggested I could join you for some of your trip, but you wanted your independence, and I knew better than to press. It was just us in the house on that final summer's day. I woke up at 5 a.m., watched you sleeping next to me. I made you breakfast. You asked for a photo of you wearing your huge hiking rucksack by the open front door. I gave you a note I'd written the day before, my handwriting shaky with anxiety, told you not to read it until you'd crossed the border. Then I said goodbye. I went to my room and looked at the photos I'd just taken. In one of them you're laughing, mouth open, nose wrinkled up in that trademark squint. It's how I picture you, even now. I panicked. Maybe I could stop you or delay you a day or two. I put the phone down, threw the door open and ran after you, but you were already gone. I can point out on a map from memory the town where you grew up, the house you spent your adolescence in, the high school you went to, the hill you had to climb at the weekend to get cell reception to see if any boys had texted you, the forest where you went bush bashing and got lost and nearly died, the fire breaks you rode your dirt bike up and down as a teenager, the river you were tubing down when you were 12 and your friend broke his arm and it hung limply at a sickening angle. That river ran past the campsite your parents owned, now sold and closed. In the summers, you helped tourists pan for gold there. Why am I like this? For a long time, there wasn't a day when I didn't think about you, about the time we spent together, about the first time we got together, the unhinged sexual chemistry we had, and how when you got back from a work trip, you came to my room, and instead of speaking, we just started stripping each other naked. The time we both cried with laughter, trying and failing to explain to a housemate the premise of that show where they make cakes that pretend to be things. The time you called me up to your room and you were standing fully nude, wanting help with your fake tan before a girls' trip to Ibiza. How we'd spoon on the sofa and watch Stranger Things, and I'd hold you when you jumped. The time we lay in bed together in the dark as a summer rainstorm battered the windows and talked about whether we had a future. And the next time we talked about it, when you told me that we didn't. You came home one night before we got together, drunk as a skunk on cab sav and unable to find your keys. Pounded on the front door until I woke up. I went downstairs, shirtless, and found you slumped on the ground with your phone in your hand. I'm so cold, Henry. You held me close and handed me the phone so I could tell whoever was on the other end that you weren't going to die of exposure. In the days leading up to your departure, you packed your stuff, leaving behind things you didn't want. You offered some of them to me. I took them because they reminded me of you, and got rid of them for the same reason. I kept the t-shirt of mine you wore the last night we were together until it stopped smelling like you. In the end, all I have left is a business card from that job you hated, a scrunchie you left on my nightstand, and a photo I took of us on the sofa together. Months after you left, I printed it out, and on the back of it I wrote, "Maybe it isn't all hopeless bullshit." "You're a real catch," you once said, peering at me with hazel eyes. "You'll make someone very happy someday." When you fall in love with someone, you fall in love with how they see the world, and so I found myself going on weekend hiking trips to Snowdonia, to surf school in Newquay to catch waves on the freezing Atlantic, interrailing round Europe, mimicking your adventures in an attempt to capture some of the joy and curiosity with which you moved through life. But with you gone, I was chasing a ghost. You once showed me the necklace you liked to wear, a New Zealand fern in 18-karat gold. You bought it with your first paycheck. I loved the symbolism of deep commitment to your adopted home, with its sparkling lakes and piercing mountains. I can't imagine feeling that way about England, a place where it feels increasingly like my time is up. I once heard that as adults we try to be whatever we weren't in high school. In your case, that was cool and rich. So in London you courted a set of friends straight out of Mean Girls, people who cared a great deal about being thin, who dated your ex behind your back, who abandoned you on holiday when you were sick, and who kicked you out of their group chats as soon as the wheels were up. It's funny because one of the things I loved about you was how conscientious you were, how civic-minded. You cooked us vegan meals, you ran a book club, you helped people on the street. You managed to avoid the hard shell that most Londoners adopt after living here for a while, retreating to their inner worlds when they leave the house and not caring to interact with anyone outside it. I was an anxious kid. I cared about getting good grades, getting into a good university, getting a top degree. At some point that fell away and I learned not to worry so much, that none of that stuff counts for nearly as much as everyone makes out. And when I realized just how much time I wasted being anxious, I risked becoming cynical and sneering. Like so much about you, I found that necklace intimidating. It showed how much you cared about building a life from the rubble of your traumatic upbringing, the long shadow of which you were still grappling with. I couldn't imagine caring that much about anything. I didn't hear much from you once you left. I thought you might want to keep in touch, but I was too proud to reach out. When I finally did message, you said that you weren't planning on coming to London on your way home as planned, but you'd happily talk on the phone, until something changed and that too was out of the question. The scope of our relationship, such as it was, shrank until it could fit into a text message. So I said goodbye for good, that you meant such a lot to me, that you should look me up if ever you're passing through. You never did. Your final message, thanks, all the best, and then your profile picture went blank, and I didn't hear from you again. I ended up moving out of that house. When I opened the storage locker in the garden, I saw the blue bike you left behind. And there, in the helmet hooked on one of the handlebars, was a strand of frizzy auburn hair. Proof you were here, that it really happened, that I loved you once. A reminder that you're out there on the other side of the world, living out your life with people who adore you. I'm glad our paths crossed for a bright, brilliant moment. I'm not sure I could do it again, but part of me will always long for the land of the long white cloud.
Well, thanks so much for reading that. I really enjoyed hearing it. Did you notice anything differently? Did you feel differently reading it out loud than when you had just been writing it and dealing with it as text?
Yeah, it's definitely more visceral, I think, reading it out loud to an audience. It had mostly been replaying in my head, and I'd shared it with a few people. But yeah, definitely not read it out loud. That was definitely quite different.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I really loved it. I really liked it when you previously wrote it, and I think a bunch of these sections were quite different. I think there's I don't recall if it was it previously, but the section of all the places from her history that you knew was very touching.
Mm-hmm.
Was that new, or is that something that you'd been
That
around
was
for a while?
that was added new, I believe.
Yeah.
But it's all accurate. I mean, certainly at the time, for some reason, seared into my memory were all of these different kind of random spots in rural New Zealand, which I could pick out on a map. Maybe not now, but certainly for a long time.
Right. I like the Rumi quote, run from what's comfortable, destroy your reputation, be notorious. I liked hearing the phrase drunk as a skunk. My mum only calls me that, or uses the phrase. It was interesting how there's so many great things that you love about her, but you give a kind of a contrast where she's very civic-minded in one bit and then surrounds herself with mean girls kind of people in the other bit.
Yeah, indeed.
Was that a what's the word? Like a paradox, so that was kind of running through?
I think it was quite paradoxical. I mean, I think she was a person who was quite paradoxical in many ways. Very kind and civic-minded and communitarian, but also, definitely had some kind of harder edges and some, I guess kind of, sharp, pointy bits. And it's interesting that she did have this group of Antipodean friends who were, really not that nice to her. And I think it does reflect on someone, the people you choose to surround yourself with.
Sure.
Yeah.
Forgive me if I didn't read it carefully enough. How long of a period was it that you were together?
It was very short. I mean, this was maybe 8 weeks from end to end.
Oh, wow.
So it was extremely intense.
Wow.
And it was quite derailing. I think it did derail me for quite a long time.
Is that why you wanted to write about it? To try and help things settle back to normal?
Yeah, I mean, it actually started out as a letter I wrote to her. Kind of as a therapeutic, mechanism. People say, write a letter to the person even if you never send it.
Yeah.
Maybe don't send it. And so I started writing this, and it sort of got away with me. And I wrote more and more, and it got longer and longer until it was, clearly, no longer, it clearly burst the bounds of what it was meant to be. And then it kind of seemed clear to me that this was actually a piece of kind of personal nonfiction,
right.
And I should just write this up into a full thing. There was a bigger story that was waiting to be told.
Did someone specifically recommend that you write this kind of faux letter?
No, I think I read about it online somewhere as a sort of standard CBT style therapeutic technique. Write the letter and then burn it, or this kind of thing.
No, it's tough when someone still has a lingering impact on your life after they've left it.
Yeah,
it's really annoying.
It is very annoying.
They didn't. I don't know that I had as much impact on them as they did as me sometimes.
Yeah. And I think that asymmetry also hurts somehow.
Yeah.
It's like, oh well, they clearly, weren't left with such a strong impression.
Yeah.
And I guess there are probably other people in your life where you did leave that kind of impression, but it's when you have this one person that really matters, and you didn't stick.
I highlighted the line, I couldn't imagine caring that much about anything. What was it about her necklace that was as intimidating?
I think it was the symbolism of it. So, I always think it's interesting how people choose to dress themselves and accoutre themselves, and the tattoos they have, the kind of symbols that they choose to adorn themselves with. And I don't know, I kind of dress in a pretty normcore kind of way, and I don't have any tattoos, and it seems there's a lot of Uniqlo. I think it's very significant what people choose to put on their bodies, and this was it was a very subtle symbol, but it was New Zealand was her adopted home. She moved there when she was 11, I think, and wasn't naturalized until she was 19. So it was very much an adopted home, but one in which she had very deep roots. And I think often people will move around a lot and not really put roots down anywhere. And so it was quite striking that she had this very deep affinity for this place, which was once foreign to her, and that she'd chosen to build a life there, and picked that as a symbol of her kind of allegiance to that country.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I also highlighted the line, but I was I thought you might want to keep in touch, but I was too proud to reach out.
Yeah,
yeah,
it's very familiar.
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, indeed.
What did you learn as a result of writing it?
I think I learned that there was a lot of depth of feeling that I could really kind of mine to like bring out some of these sorts of things. I mean, you know, I'd talked about it a lot and journaled about it a lot as an event, and you know, many of my friends had to deal with a summer of me being insufferably heartbroken, for which I would like to thank them. But I think I kind of really enjoyed writing it, and not just writing it as just like here's a recording of what happened, but as a narrative history. And so I was quite pleased that I could find the words to put it together in a sort of artistic and stylish way, and produce something I'm really proud of as a piece of writing, as a piece of literature. You know, I think it's one of the better things I've produced. And yeah, something I could spend a lot of time on and really, really craft. And I think in my application to Inkhaven, I mentioned, you know, one of the reasons I wanted to come here was to hone the craft of writing, you know, both for its own sake, but also because it's enjoyable to really kind of chisel a story out of nothing.
How do you feel it changed over the course of Inkhaven?
I think the broad structure is probably the same. I think there were a lot of wording changes that really helped the story flow better, that improved the prose. I think there was quite a lot about the start that was restructured, where people hadn't really got the gist of the sort of living situation, and the house share is what I called it initially. And I think to an American audience, often they didn't know what a house share was. It's like, oh, you mean a group house? We'll go with group house. So there was a lot of language to change and a lot of tweaks to make it much tighter. A lot of things that got removed in a kind of kill your darlings fashion, which is often very difficult. You know, you've slaved over these particular phrases, and then you have to kind of leave them on the ground, which is always a bit sad.
She was a billionaire heiress of an oil company.
Sure, yes, that's right. Yeah, all the identifying information, you know, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I think it was a really good exercise taking it to the feedback circles and to other kind of guest writers who were here offering their feedback. And it's quite a scary process having someone go through your piece on the big screen with other people watching.
Gosh, that's it is, and I encourage people to do it. Like I encouraged Jasmine to do it, and she was like, I thought my piece was done and I didn't really want to go, and that was really good, and I'm glad you pushed me. I wouldn't have pushed you to do this one. It's so personal.
Well, it is very, yes, indeed.
I wouldn't have felt comfortable, but you did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought it was, you know, the one I wanted to post on the last day, and it was important to me, and it you know, finally getting it out of my drafts after 3 years, you know, why not have Scott Alexander have a look at it?
Yeah. Was there a especially good experience of getting feedback, or anyone in particular who influenced it?
I enjoyed Scott's feedback. I think that was very helpful. And I think the diary posting feedback circle with Alexander Wales.
That does sound like a good fit.
Yeah, I think that was very good. And that really helped it kind of read and scan better.
Because you had many people each. I think they take turns to say what was going on in it, what they loved about it, how they would change it.
Exactly. Yeah. So you get 5 other people or 6 other people plus Wales giving their feedback and giving their thoughts about what they thought it was about and how they would make changes and things they didn't understand. And I think particularly when you've been looking at a piece for a long time,
right?
You know, you kind of miss you no longer really have a sense of how it hangs together. There's kind of a semantic satiation thing where you just can't really see the wood for the trees anymore. And so having a fresh pair of eyes, or many fresh pairs of eyes, look at it and give you that feedback is really helpful.
That sounds emotionally turbulent to have 6 different people at the same time go around and talk about it.
I think...
Was that the most intense one?
I think the writing circle was all right. I think it was the session with Scott, where there were about 20 people in the room,
right,
was definitely more intense.
I'm just curious, what kind of feedback did Scott give? Was he doing like low-level line editing?
I think he said that, you know, the genre is Lost Love, you really made me kind of feel your suffering. You executed it masterfully. I was very flattered.
Yeah.
Feedback from the master.
I think I was expecting he would like it. I also don't know that it's not the kind of piece that he would write, so I think for a few
Sure.
pieces like that, he's like, this is great at what it's doing, and I don't have much more beyond that. But that's great. How did your other writing at Inkhaven relate to this, if at all? Did it change anything, or was it just other interesting things?
I think I'm not sure this piece changed my writing per se. I think seeing some of the other residents write some quite emotionally vulnerable pieces encouraged me to dig a bit deeper and pull out some of those as well. So I wrote a piece on a couple of breakups that I'd had and how they'd affected me, and kind of trying to draw a more sort of generalizable feeling about how some breakups go. Some are fine and some are very turbulent. So yeah, there are certainly a few more emotional pieces or pieces of personal nonfiction which I had not necessarily thought I would come in writing. I think I sort of thought I'd be doing more deeply researched effort posts. And I did a few of those, but certainly the ones that were hits were very much the personal nonfiction. And those are probably the ones I enjoyed writing the most as well. So that's kind of a seam I'd like to mine a bit more.
Were there any other people's writing that you especially liked reading, or that made you feel a little freer in writing your own stuff?
I mean, I really enjoyed lots of the writers. I enjoyed Erin Kaufman's blogging about kind of dating and relationships, and I thought that was really good. I lifted a paragraph from his post on how to do date ups. I lifted a quote from his piece on how to do breakups well for my piece on breakups, which I think he put it very elegantly. You need to, how many points you get from executing a breakup properly, and your kind of, the key is you need to leave the room and the breakup needs to have happened. You can't leave the room and you both think you're still together, or one person thinks they're still together. Like, that is negative 10 million points. You need to get yourself out from under that. So his posting has been very good. Viv has also posted some things on relationships, which I think were interesting. I think it's been a really fascinating cohort with some very, really very diverse kind of writing styles and topics. So it's been very impressive to see what other people have put out.
That's good. Has Inkhaven surprised you in any ways?
I was surprised by how much I enjoyed it.
Oh.
I think I expected to enjoy it, but it was a really fantastic month. I think there's going to be a big come down when I leave and don't have the structure of the campus, and I won't be able to walk 20 seconds out of my room to the kitchen and find some brilliantly incisive and sharp people to talk to about, anything from Wagner to NMDA receptor agonists. I think those two were actually the same person. So, it's a really special set of people. So I've been very pleased and privileged to meet them all.
That's good. Did you have any other writing goals while you were here, other than to get for this piece to get published?
To not fail out. That was good. Write 500 words a day.
It's not that hard,
for 30 days. Yes, indeed. Well, and not post at 11:59 like some people do.
Yeah, I know.
That's very, very stressful.
Well, you made the lovely Brinkhaven to show the people the times. What percentage of people published after 10 p.m. of posts was it?
Oh, like...
It was like 40%.
At least 40%. Yeah. And some large percentage are between 11 and midnight. And then there were some that were 3 or 4 seconds before midnight. I mean...
we had Viv in. She had a 3 and a 4 second one.
Yeah. I mean, that's...
Is it my fault? What is wrong with these people?
It's definitely too exciting for me.
And then last night, just, I was up late doing a writing project with someone. I was so tired, and then it hit midnight, and Katia Grace hadn't published. And I was like, oh my God, have I just lost another one? It turned out she hadn't submitted the link in time, which she's not out for. If you do that, it's excessive. There are increasing punishments. But, I think... it can be a lot on your heart sometimes.
Yeah, that's right. The stress.
What's the daily writing done to your mind? How has it affected you?
I think the routine has been really nice. I think the first 5 days are very strange and you're settling in, and then quite quickly I found myself in the routine of getting up, cup of coffee, talk to people, and then sit down and write. And I was surprised. I figured I had 30 blog posts in me. I figured I could do that. Whether they be good blog posts or not, I don't know. But I was surprised by how much stuff was there and how many pieces sort of flowed out of my fingers relatively straightforwardly. And
What was the easiest piece to write?
the easiest piece to write was the first one.
Oh, really?
Yeah, where I woke up at maybe 5 a.m. because I was jet lagged coming from London. And I'd had some kind of thoughts turning over in my head about my observations about coming to the US and how, I took the cab with Alec Thompson from SFO.
Oh, I recall you two arriving.
Yeah, indeed. And so on the cab ride, we sort of chatted a bit, and he made a comment about he was looking into an office building and seeing these office workers at their desks and asking, do they not know what's going to happen about the impending sort of AI driven changes to the global economy. And we both mused about the fact that although Britain and America are notionally very similar, they're actually quite different in many ways. It's quite a big culture clash. And so I'd been, I think, mulling over those thoughts somewhat unconsciously. And so I woke up at 5 and I'd kind of written it by 7 in pretty much finished form with a bit of tweaking. So that one really just appeared. The rest were more, took more effort.
What was the hardest one to write?
The hardest one to write. Well,
other than this one.
I'm currently writing a piece of fiction. I don't really write any fiction, and that is like pulling teeth. I really have no idea what I'm doing. I can write a lot of words, but I review it and I just go, this is so boring. No one's going to want to read this.
Are you doing it because of the badge? That
Absolutely. I want my Inkhaven pin, and I need a piece of fiction. I've got 6 out of 7 categories, and I'm not going to leave here without the pin.
That's lovely. I've been wanting prestige runs for a while, or whatever you call it. But Lucy pushed that one through, and she got the pins, and they were like, here are the 7 canonical categories of posts.
Yep.
Empirical, meta, humor.
Yep.
But that's great. That's great. I'm glad more people have been trying the fiction, because many great bloggers, it's not the main thing that most of them do, but occasionally they have a good idea for a story.
Yep.
And
it's a good stretch goal, I think.
Yeah. What are you proud of in your writing other than this piece?
Yeah, I think the other pieces of personal nonfiction have been pretty good. I think there are some reasonably good bits of analysis and kind of advice posts. So I wrote one yesterday on whether you should do earning to give or founding to give if you want to make a lot of money and give the money away to effective charities. And that had been brewing for a while, and I think captured quite a lot of my own thoughts about it, which I feel are sort of glossed over by the mainstream discourse around those topics. So I thought that was good. I think there are some effort posts I wrote that involved doing a lot of research. I wrote one on a particular class of drug called gabapentinoids, which involved doing a lot of reading of papers. And
Remind me what those are for.
Gabapentinoids are typically prescribed for neuropathic pain and seizures and bipolar disorder and anxiety, which is an unusual set of indications. And they work in a very unusual way. They don't act on GABA receptors like benzodiazepines or alcohol, despite the name. And we actually only really figured out how they work. I think in 2025, there was a paper that showed that the binding site that they bind to is sort of upstream of some synaptogenetic process. So they actually are involved in building new synapses and maybe inhibit the building of new synapses. And what consequences does that have for how we prescribe them? So it's funny how we have a class of drug that we prescribed for 30 years and only found out last year how it actually works. So I enjoyed writing that.
Nice.
I learned a lot of stuff writing it.
That's great. Do you think you'll keep blogging after you leave?
Definitely. Yeah, I know some alums of the first cohort who do Forever Haven.
Yeah.
Blogging once a week.
I gotta set something up on the website such that when you post new stuff afterwards, it just arrives at the top of the website. Anyway, that's a me thing.
I think that would be great, actually. Yeah. And yeah, I like the idea of posting weekly to a deadline. I think that's, and doing that indefinitely, that seems very doable, and that would be a nice way to keep the momentum going. I think, it is, I know obviously a lot of people find it more difficult than others, and I think particularly if you're writing poetry or fiction, you basically have a more difficult job writing 30 pieces of fiction in a month.
I don't know anyone who's done 100, who's managed like Most fiction writers say that it's been pretty hard to even do a daily one. They normally do like a 2 or a 3 day one.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think that would be hard work.
Yeah.
But I think, I'm surprised at how much in the groove you get after a few days. Writing a piece a day doesn't actually seem so intimidating. When I came in, I was thinking, am I going to be able to do this? Do I have 500 words a day in me? And, am I going to get to day 15 and just be like, the tap has run out, the tap is dry, there are no more words. And I've really not found that. I've really found that the more it's a generative process, the more you write, the more ideas you have to write about. And I think that act of seeing ideas in the day-to-day and in conversations with people is something interesting that sort of appears as time goes on, and you start to really, see ideas that you otherwise might not have spotted.
Yeah. What was the best piece of feedback or writing advice you got while you were here at Inkhaven?
There were lots. I think one that stands out was Gwern's talk at the opening ceremony, where he just said, don't be lazy. And, you will have conversations with people. You'll have lots of conversations with people that are very interesting. And they will mention things offhandedly that they are going to do nothing with. And because, they have too many ideas, or to them it seems obvious, or for whatever other reason. And so just be aware of those ideas and pick them up off the ground and note them down and do something with them. There may well be 5 things a day that you hear as little conversational snippets, and just don't be lazy. Pick up on those things and write about them.
Yeah, I think he's got a related point he makes, which is don't let a joke go to waste. It's like people just have these great little jokes or great little ideas or whatever, or a story concepts, and they say them, and they go great, and then they leave, and it's just there. It's just gone.
Yeah.
That's neat. What was your most Inkhaven-esque experience during the month? What's the most you got a bunch of writers trapped in a place together writing?
I need to think about that. My most Inkhaven-esque. I think there was an interesting run of posts that were all Inkhaven meta posts. And there was an announcement at lunchtime about, maybe we should go easy on the meta posts. And I also posted a meta post about meta posting, and I'm very sorry. But, I think it was fun to have that. I think, and the trend is now, I think it's died down a bit now.
Yeah.
We've chilled out. But I think that was quite fun.
There were some good ones, man. There were some funny. Wales is maybe my favourite. Is Forever Haven.
Forever Haven, yes.
Fiction.
Yeah, that was slightly terrifying.
And Stephen Cass wrote a 5 Ever Haven sequel that was also pretty good.
Mm.
I don't even know why that is. Like, the first Inkhaven cohort, we went to the Bodega Bay, and someone wrote a piece on the horn, and everyone was like, huh, look at him, he wrote a piece about the thing that happened here. Crazy. This time we had 3 pieces on the horn, and no one was surprised.
Yeah, the foghorn was a real issue.
Yeah.
I'm led to believe.
Yeah, it's the along the top of the mural. There's just the word "beep" in a bunch of places that someone wrote.
Yep.
Yeah. Do you have a sense of why that's been happening? The meta stuff, why people do that?
Not really. I think they're enjoyable pieces that other people like. I think there's an interesting thing where when you blog normally, people write for their audience, and so my audience is a bunch of internet randoms, and not very many of them, and some friends and family. And then you come to Inkhaven, and quite quickly you're writing for other people at Inkhaven. And I don't think that's a bad thing. And I think it's interesting to change it up and to be writing for another, a different audience. To the point that I would often be surprised when I get some feedback from someone back home. Like, oh yeah, these people are still reading my blog. They didn't just go away. And I think, it's interesting to notice how your tastes change in the kind of things you're putting out, when you have a kind of an audience of, very dedicated and smart writers who, are giving you feedback and are, will comment on your work if they enjoy it, and you your tastes and preferences start to change.
Mm-hmm. I think I'm curious why you initially applied, or like what made you go, yeah, right, I'll fill this out, I'll give it a go. So,
a friend of mine, Hauke Hillebrandt, was on the first cohort. And he spoke very highly of it.
I've known Hauke for like a decade.
Have you really?
Well, when I arrived at Oxford when I was 18, I went out for a drink with him and Harry Vishelli, who also did it last time.
Indeed.
Best Jelly.
Best Jelly. And they both wrote, Hauke has his own particular style of like very information-dense pieces. And then Harry's posts are sort of the opposite in a way. where they're very, and that's not intended to be offensive.
No, no.
It's just like they're very much more free flowing and sort of improvisational.
I rarely laugh as hard as I laugh when I read his writing.
It's very good. It's very good.
Not everyone gets it, but man, I get it.
Yeah, it's very funny. And so they both recommended it quite highly. And I'm on a career break at the moment, and it just seemed like,
Nice.
I have a goal every year of write more. And, it seems like,
really?
I always put it down as, write more, exercise more, maybe certain career goals, and write more. It never feels like I've really built the muscle on that. And yeah, I'm on a career break. It seemed like an amazing opportunity. And if I was working full time, I just wouldn't have the time to do it.
It's surprising how many people in the world at a given time are on enough of a career break that they can come to a month-long writer's retreat. I really, after the first one, when I got 41 people, I was like, man, I don't know if I can get another 40 people.
Yeah.
It's less than, it was like 5 months later. But we got 55. So probably I'll be able to find some more in future if I keep this thing going.
I think so. Is that the plan? Inkhaven 3? Watch this space.
I'm really stressed by this in Inkhaven, so I don't want to say yes, now, but probably.
Okay.
Yeah. Were the people what you expected? Was the vibe?
I think it's a very mixed bunch, which is good. I think, very kind of diverse intellectually and in terms of what people want to write about. I thought there would be a very heavy focus on AI and AI safety.
Yeah.
I had actually come in thinking that I would write a lot about AI and try and clarify my own thoughts on AI safety, and I think I completely failed to do that. But wrote a bunch of other things instead, which I was very happy with. But the AI safety contingent, I think, is relatively small, with lots of other people writing, as I say, short stories, fiction, poetry, detailed analyses of Scottish exam papers. It's a very eclectic bunch, and I think that's been very valuable, and it's just meant, there are always fascinating conversations going on, and you never really know what direction things are going to take.
Yeah. I still don't even know exactly why it is. I don't know if it's just the kinds of writing advisors I advertise, or if it's just what kinds of people like to write a lot. Because, I often don't quite know how interesting the people are before they get here.
Sure.
I just read a good piece by them or something. But it is remarkable. I
think it's interesting that you accept people blind. You don't do an interview. You just read their writing and accept them on that basis. I think that's a real. You're putting a lot of trust in the process, I guess, to select people who are going to be somewhat agreeable and be a good fit, I guess, personality-wise. But seems to work out. So. I
mean, I spent my whole career just finally meeting people who I only know as being kind of smart, disagreeable, good writers online, and it's mostly gone all right.
Yeah.
I think mostly the experience I have is that the very sharp, spiky online people are quite quiet or calm and a little meek or something in person. So it's not been too bad generally. They're not they're rarely going around picking fights in real life. In real life, they're just kind of introverted, kind of calm or whatever.
Yeah.
So mostly it goes pretty good. What's bush bashing?
Bush bashing is the New Zealand term for bushwhacking.
Oh.
So it's when you move through the the long the long grass and have to cut it back with a machete, because otherwise it's impassable.
If you could speak to the version of you that was about to arrive at Inkhaven, what advice would you give him about how to do it differently?
How to do it differently? I don't know if I would do it differently. I think I would just say, talk to as many people as possible, challenge yourself to work hard and write a lot, and you're going to have one of the best months of your life.
Great. Thanks very much for chatting with me. Thanks for this beautiful essay.
Of course. Thank you so much.
All right. Farewell for now.
Before we wrap up, I'd just like to thank our sponsor for this episode, WordPress.com. As a teenager, many of the blogs I grew up reading were built using WordPress, such as Slate Star Codex, Don't Worry About the Vase, and Shtetl Optimized. The co-founder of WordPress, Matt Mullenweg, went on to build WordPress.com, a hosting service that supports bloggers. It provides an interface that allows you to design your website and to use the near infinite family of libraries and plugins that have been built for WordPress. If you're someone who cares to be able to design your own blog, for your ideas, for your writing, and for your own aesthetic, then by far one of the best options on the internet today is WordPress.com.